Try again, he says. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the first episode. Welcome back. Welcome in to the first episode of Poorly Played Poker. I'm your host, Chapadong. And the reason you got me laughing is right over here in the corner. I've got my 23-year-old autistic son, Matthew. He is my biggest fan. He likes to sit here and watch me film videos, and occasionally he likes to talk in them. So we're going to get what we get. And that's what you're going to get with me in Poorly Played Poker. You're going to see the good, you're going to see the bad, you're going to see the ugly, you're going to see raw, unapologetic, sarcastic, self-deprecating humor, and we're going to dive right in because I have a huge vision and I want to build a community. I need everybody's help to do it. I've already solicited help from my friends at DFS Army and other friends over here at the Sharp app. They have the daily fantasy world, FanDuel, DraftKings, and all of that covered. They have the sports betting world covered over at the Sharp app. And I was presented with the opportunity to build out a poker kind of room, kind of community, because what I've done at DFS Army for 10 years is experiment and teach people what I learn as I learn it in the FanDuel and DraftKings realm. But there is so much that those niches, those industries, those hobbies have in common with poker. It's ridiculous, from variants to cash games, tournaments, top heavy strategies to everything. The parallels with poker are insane and they don't stop. And so it's been a very easy transition to the DFS world. But now let's just transition back because I was asked, do I still play poker? I said, yeah, I love playing poker. I said, well, what about building a poker community? I said, hell, I can do that. I'm an OG at DFS Army. And if you want to see my poker track record, I'll put it right there for you. 1,200, 1,500 hours or so of crushing the low live stakes. I'm not a poker coach. You're not going to get that from me. You shouldn't expect that from me. But you're going to see some terribly played poker by a guy who crushes the games because none of us are perfect. Daniel Negreanu's not perfect. Brad Owen, not perfect. None of us play hands perfectly, and we need to discuss the various ways to play poker hands in order to get better. I have a concept I'm going to dive into called isolation here in a second, and I have a hand history for you as well using isolation, and then we'll just go ahead and call this the first video. But what you're going to get from me is you're on a train track, you're on a journey now, where you are going to see us develop out into the world of casinos because I'm not stopping at daily fantasy sports. I'm not stopping at sports betting. I'm not stopping at poker. I want ultimate Texas Hold'em advice. I want baccarat advice. I want slot machine advice. When to leave a game, which games in the casino to target. I want comp structure advice. Where should I stay? Where am I going to maximize my comps? How can I get more money out of the industry that's taking so much money out of us? And I need friends. I need friends to do that with. I don't know everything. I'm not ever going to know everything, but you might. And if you do, I'm asking you, join my Discord. And that's the only requirement. If you want to collaborate and you want to share with me, you need to be in that Discord where I can help you and you can help me. I can bring you to people and you can bring me the advice that I'm looking for, and we can build out a community where somebody can come in and learn Baccarat and FanDuel in the same day. I think people would gladly belong to a community just like that. And that's what we're going to do. So without further ado, let's talk a little bit of poker. Let's let this video take off and grow legs. And like I said, like, subscribe, share, comment, whatever. I cannot do this without your help. So if this resonates with you and the bigger vision of an all-encompassing casino community, gambling community appeals to you, then you need to be part of this. And you need to get that Discord link and get in here too, because that's where we're really. I'm going to leave that in here this time because that was awesome. That is my director, my son, Matthew, giving me the old try again. So even though I'm not a big graphic editor and I'm a low tech kind of guy, I do multiple takes and you're going to see that. But let's talk about the isolation that we were talking about in the intro. And to do that, I want to show you my low tech version of the whiteboard. And eventually we'll get the technology up there. But right now, I want to keep the video editing minimized because with CapCut and TikTok and all of that stuff, politically it is what it is. But I don't know if the app's going to be here, and I need backup plans, and I need to keep things as streamlined as possible. So we're just going to go low tech before we invest hours and hours and hours into video editing and things and making things technologically pretty. Plus, I'm not a boomer. I'm a Gen X, but okay boomer. I like the low tech stuff. It's authentic and it's real, and hopefully you appreciate it too. On this square, this is a portion of the starting hand charts that you can find on Google and find anywhere. With your aces down one side and your across the top ace, king, queen, jack, blah blah blah, all the way down to pocket deuces when you get the whole square set out, right? And we've got our pocket pairs that form the diagonal from aces to kings to jacks to tens to eights to fives to deuces down here in the corner. And then everything above that diagonal is a suited combination of cards. 9-4 suited, jack deuce suited is all up here. Jack deuce, whenever you run the chart down, it'd be jack deuce suited would be right there. Or I'm sorry, it'd be jack deuce suited over here. But anyway, the offsuit stuff is down here. If you know how to read these charts, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't know how to read these charts, get in our Discord. I'll give you a copy of them. I'll show you what we're talking about. But when we want to find ace king suited, we know where to look. When we want to find king jack offsuit, we know where to look. We just go zzz, zzz, and we find it. Now, what we're trying to do is we're using these starting hand charts to formulate a visual range in our heads of what hands are playable from where. In our early position hands, we want to be very, very tight because we're not going to do a lot of limping at a poker table. That's the sign of a weak player. And we want to get into raised pots with the initiative, with authority. That's a fundamental poker concept that we all need to know. Limping is a sign of a recreational player that's just there to see cheap flops, make big hands, and get paid. And we can take advantage of those guys at the poker table. However, and we're going to isolate those limpers down here in a second. But first things first, when we're in early position, we're playing fairly tight because we're out of position and we're going to have to bet into somebody who can just call along with a stronger hand. We won't know where we stand very often, and we can lose a lot of money if we have ace 10 and he has ace queen. So don't play ace 10, at least not the offsuit variety. However, the suited tens, up here on this side of the graph, any two cards 10 and higher are playable from early position. They are also worth isolating people that do limp into the pot because they're not limping in with aces and queens and ace king. Usually they're raising those hands. So when they limp, they're telling us they don't have those really, really strong hands up here in this corner of the chart. So we can attack that. We can attack that weaker range with more money and more authority and more initiative and start putting pressure on that opponent to make a really, really strong hand with mediocre cards. That's how they lose money. That's how we win money. So suited tens works early position. And then as you start getting into the middle positions, you can go kind of to the suited nines, and then you can even get to the suited eights and such in later position. When we're isolating those limpers, what I'm talking about is getting that pot one-on-one. I don't want to see 3 and 4 and 5-way pots very often. If they happen, they happen. And the low stakes are famous for them. But I'm going to do better when I control the pot and I only have one other player to play with, because then it opens up my tackle box and I can start bluffing more. I can start check raising. I can start doing things. I don't need the best hand to win in a spot like that. In a 5-person pot, I have to have the best hand to win. In a 2-person pot, I don't. And I have more winning chances when I have you one-on-one. That's my goal. That's isolating you. It's not personal. I'm just isolating you to play a pot with you that I can then take away from you later if I don't make a hand. The way I'm going to do that, and I'll show you in a hand history here in a second, is isolating you first and then understanding what you're telling me with your betting, your calling, your raising, your checking, your whatever, and then I can adjust what I'm doing to you and eventually take that pot away. As we get into the isolating game, though, we get a limper or two, and I'm sitting in an early position, I'm only isolating with those suited tens. And, maybe ace king offsuit, ace queen offsuit, but I'm only isolating the very, very strongest offsuit hands and a little bit of the stronger suited hands. I'm not doing it with 6-7 suited very often, or, I'm certainly not doing it with jack 4 suited or anything like that. It's just not strong enough. And there's always the chance that people behind us can get in and call and create a multi-way pot, and then I'm in there with mediocre cards, and that's bad for me. But as we get later and later and later, we get to the mid positions or we get to the late positions, the cutoff and the button and places like that, we can open up our range and play suited eights, even jack 8 suited, 7-8 suited. Those are okay in that spot. 10-8 suited. Those are okay because now we don't have anyone to act after us. We're going to have all that information in front of. If you don't know position, you got to study position. It's another fundamental. But we've got all that information coming in ahead of us in the poker hand, and we can make better and better decisions ourselves on how we are going to proceed. So, and we're going to start by finding the threshold at the table. There is a threshold. When people are putting $2, $2, $2 in and you raise to $5, nobody's going to take you seriously. If you raise to $10, they still might not take you seriously. If you raise to $15, they might start taking you seriously. But this might be a table on a Friday night where you're going to have to raise to 20 bucks to get that pot one-on-one with somebody. If you raise it to 15 bucks, it's still going to go 4 ways. That's not good for you. You need to find that threshold. I don't start like the book says at 3 times plus limpers or $6. That's not going to get it done at a 1-2 table low live stakes. You need to go a lot bigger than that. You need to start at 10 bucks, 12 bucks, 15 bucks, and then add one for every limper. If there were 2 people in the pot and it gets to me and I decide to raise and isolate, I need to be at 12 bucks plus 2 limpers. That's 12, 14, 16. My raise needs to be $16. That's it. And if I take the blinds, that's fine. If a hand ends right there, great. But my goal is to get it to one person, not 2 or 3 that call my initial raise. And it's just, you've got to find that threshold. It varies day to day, night to night, but you've got to find it. You've got to test it. When you first pick up ace king, go ahead and blast it to 15 bucks. If you get 3 callers, then you know the next time you get a hand worth raising, you're gonna have to raise to a little bit more. Or if it steals the blinds, the next time come down to 14 or 12 or 13 or something like that and try that. You can do this in the first 30 minutes you're at a poker table, find that threshold, and then pretty much be ready to go the rest of the day. Now, the early and the late position thing here is just telling you that the early position is the suited 10s and the late position maybe goes out to the suited 8s. That's essential. If you want more details, we can talk more in the Discord room, but this is essentially isolation. And I want to show you this example here really quickly of a hand that I played where I used that isolation technique to take the pot. So let me scoot over a little bit more. Hopefully you can see this. At this point, we can even start lower if we need to, but we have an unknown poker player and we're playing $1, $2, $250 effective stacks. Under the gun, the first guy to act limps. Bad sign. I'm automatically targeting that guy. He already told me he doesn't have pocket aces. He doesn't have pocket kings. He doesn't have ace king. He doesn't have ace queen. Probably doesn't have queen jack. He probably doesn't have hands that he would raise with. He's on some dirt, and I can take advantage of that. So when it folds to me in the cutoff, I have king 9 offsuit. That's not a great hand, right? But it's an isolation hand. I raise it to 12 bucks because that's going to get it heads up. There's nobody left act behind me. The blinds fold. Only the under the gun player calls, and of course everybody else had already folded. So now we're heads up in this pot, and I've got king 9, which isn't great. It's okay if a king flops in a heads up pot. It's terrible in a 4-way pot. That's why we have to raise. Plus, people realize that I don't raise with aces all the time. Sometimes it is some junky stuff. So it keeps them guessing. It has multiple effects. We've got a $24 pot on the flop. And the flop comes jack, jack, 6, rainbow, meaning no flush draws, no clubs, no diamonds, no whatever. And the player missed. He checks to me. Well, I know this. What's his range at this point? He could have some jacks. He could have pocket 8s, pocket 7, but he doesn't have pocket kings. He doesn't have ace jack, probably. He doesn't have ace king or anything like that. He checks to me because he mostly missed unless he's trapping me with a jack or pocket 6s, and I bet 10 bucks and he calls. Okay, so he's got something, but it's not big. It didn't raise me. He could be trapping me with a jack. Pocket 6s probably raises me hoping I have a jack. Nothing else is going to raise me. Pocket queens, they're not there. They didn't raise pre-flop. They're not there. So he's on a weaker range. He's on something that he wants to call probably pocket pairs, 7s, 8s, 9s, something along those lines. And he wants to see how serious I am about the pot. So, okay, I'm about to start telling you how serious I am about the pot, but I don't have anything. I'm just going to let you think that I do because I raised. When I raised pre-flop, you have to think that I have the aces or I have the kings or I have the jack or I have whatever, right? So on this $44 turn after his call, deuce of clubs is not, that's a nothing burger to anything. He checks that bet $10 again. Why so small? Why didn't I bet 30 bucks? Well, I'm not trying to turn my hand into a bluff yet. What would pocket aces or pocket kings do? They might bet small. I'm trying to continue story, and I want him to raise that jack. If he has that jack or those pocket 6s, his time is now to raise. I bet small because if he raises me, then I know he's greedy and I know he wants to build a bigger pot because he's got a real hand and I can fold. I'm what's called capping his range, right? So when he calls the 10, he's done. He doesn't have a jack. He doesn't have pocket 6s. He doesn't have anything that can play for stacks or play for any big bets at all. I've just stolen $20, $32 from this guy because I'm playing in late position in isolation style, and I checked his range here, and I checked his range here with tiny bets, and he told me twice he doesn't have crap that he can't play a big pot with. So what happens when the river's a 10? Unless he hit that 10, I'm golden. He checks. I bet 45. I come all the way up almost to the size of the pot. I could have bet 60, 75. It wouldn't have mattered. He wasn't calling 45. He wasn't calling 75. Probably wasn't calling $30. Fine. I need to bet a big enough number that he will fold out his pocket eights, pocket nines, stuff like that. So, can you call 48, $45 with pocket nines there? Probably not after a guy has been bet into you and raised pre-flop, right? And I had jack crap. I can't win that pot with king high, so I've got to bluff at it. I bluff at it, I win, game's over. This is why isolation works. So basically, you're looking for their reactions to your hands when you isolate. You're in position, hopefully, and then you can bet when they check to you and keep pressure on their range. Keep them under the microscope a little bit so that they then have to announce to you when they hit their card or they really, really like their hand, and then you can get away. Essentially, strong hands raise. So that jack would have raised me at some point if he'd have had it. Pocket sixes would have raised me at some point if he'd have had it. We already know he doesn't have aces, doesn't have kings, doesn't have queens. And they will call along with their mediocre stuff, and they'll eventually fold their weaker stuff to big bets. So the best bluff, if you follow Hungry Horse Poker, some friends of mine in the industry, the best bluff is the one that gets called, obviously pre-flop, but gets called on the flop, called on the turn, and then folds on the river. Because you make money. You're not trying to blast them off right here. You'll see this all the time in the games. Some guy will be afraid of a flush draw getting there, so he'll bet $40 into this $24. Boom, everybody folds. He made nothing. Even if he had a flush draw, he made squat. He's better off to bet here, and get you to fold here. And that's something you need to learn to do if you want to be a 1-2 low stakes crusher too. That's what I can help you do. So, bottom line, thank you for joining me on the first episode of Poorly Played Poker. I hope you got a kick out of it. I hope that you like the personality and like the vision and like where we're going. I hope you want to contribute and I hope you want to help. I hope you want to comment in the comment section down below. Like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, all that good stuff. We'll be back in a few days. We're going to do these a few times a week, probably in the beginning. We'll be back with another hand and another tactic, and we'll see you then. Take care. Matthew, say goodbye to everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
And see you later.
You got it, Joe.